All right, folks, gather round. We got to talk about Kamala Harris and this phone call that has Democrats stressed. Picture this. You're a big-time Democratic donor, right? You've poured your money into the party and you're hoping for some decent results. So when you get invited to a call with the Vice President herself, Kamala Harris, you're thinking, okay, cool, maybe we'll strategize, talk about the future. But no, this call was different. Instead of the pep talk they were hoping for, donors got a whole lot of something else: frustration. Instead of addressing the campaign's less than stellar performance, Harris reportedly spent a good chunk of the call praising President Biden. The donors, as you can imagine, were not impressed. They wanted action, they wanted solutions, and they definitely didn't want to spend their precious time listening to platitudes about how awesome Biden is. Now, this call wasn't happening in a vacuum. The Democrats, let's just say, haven't exactly been firing on all cylinders lately. Biden's approval ratings, not great. The economy, still shaky. And the general mood of the country, let's just say optimistic isn't the first word that comes to mind. So you've got these donors, these people with deep pockets and even deeper concerns about the direction of the country, and they're looking for reassurance. They want to know that their money is being put to good use, that the campaign is taking their concerns seriously. And what do they get? A call that felt more like a campaign commercial than a productive discussion. They felt like their concerns were being brushed aside, that the campaign was more interested in maintaining the status quo. The call, instead of rallying the troops and inspiring confidence, ended up leaving a sour taste in everyone's mouths. Okay, so the call ends, and the donors are left wondering what they just witnessed. Some were polite about it, expressing their disappointment in diplomatic terms. Others, not so much. One donor, and I quote, called the whole thing ludicrous. Ludicrous. Now that's not a word you throw around lightly, especially when you're talking about the Vice President of the United States. The donors felt talked down to, patronized, and frankly insulted. They came with serious concerns, and they were met with what they perceived as empty platitudes and political spin. Here you have a group of people who are literally invested in the success of the Democratic Party, and they're being treated like an afterthought. News of the disastrous call spread like wildfire, with donors openly criticizing the campaign's handling of the situation. It was a PR nightmare, and one that the Democrats could ill afford in an already challenging political climate. Section 4, Biden's campaign chair, adding fuel to the fire. Now you might think that after a call like that, the campaign would go into damage control mode. You know, try to smooth things over, maybe even admit that they messed up. But nope. Instead, they decided to double down. And who better to lead the charge than Biden's campaign chair? This is where things get really interesting. See, the campaign chair, in an attempt to defend the call, basically said that the donors were overreacting. They downplayed the concerns, suggesting that it was just a few disgruntled individuals making a fuss. Well, that didn't go over so well. Imagine telling a bunch of millionaires that they're being too sensitive. It was like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. The donors were even more furious, and rightfully so. This response just further highlighted the disconnect between the campaign and its donors. Section 5, Harris on the defensive, praising Biden amidst the chaos. Okay, so the call was a disaster, the donors are fuming, and the campaign's response only made things worse. Where does that leave Kamala Harris? Well, stuck between a rock and a hard place. That's where she's the vice president. She's supposed to be a unifying force within the party. But now she's caught in the middle of this PR nightmare. So what does she do? She goes on the defensive. In subsequent appearances, she repeatedly praises Biden, highlighting his accomplishments and emphasizing his commitment to the American people. Now, this wasn't necessarily a bad move. After all, she is his VP, and it's her job to support him. But in the context of the donor debacle, it felt a little tone deaf, like she was trying too hard to convince everyone, including maybe herself, that everything was fine. The donors' concerns weren't going to disappear just because Harris kept praising Biden.